He's going to have an opening statement, and we'll get going. Go ahead, Nate.
It's just always fun to see your name. You have nightmares the night before that something happens and there's a mistake and you've got this party planned and nobody shows up. So fun to see the name come across. Fun to see the excitement on our kids' face that we're here. We had Alexis toll-free on a phone call, a FaceTime. It was fun to see her excitement as well. But, just a validation for a lot of these kids who decided to come to school here before NCAA tournaments were a thing for us. And now to see that name go across there as a 4 seed, proud of these kids. We had a great turnout from our crowd to show support tonight too, and that'll carry over to San Antonio.
Paul?
Yes, sir. Mike, I was going to ask, I saw you up pacing a little bit. Any nerves waiting on that name to be called? Because it took a little while.
I predicted that's the first time any team I think I've ever been a part of a team that wasn't in the 4th bracket. So it was, it was more tonight just making sure we had all our T's crossed and I's dotted, that the right people were watching in, and we had everybody that we wanted to make, feel a part of this, as many as we could be here. No really nervousness about the event, more or less about the celebration and making sure everybody understood how cool it is and how rare it is for this to happen. So, but yeah, anticipation. I said earlier yesterday when I was talking to y'all, this, of all the years, this is the show I was kind of had the most anxiousness and excitement about because we didn't have it last year.
Nate? Jason?
You mentioned a little tie with Wright State. Can you just talk about that a little bit, and then what you know about Wright State heading into the game?
Malik Adams, former Lady Razorback, great, that played back during the Final Four runs as an assistant coach there with Katrina Merriweather. I've known Katrina for a number of years. Her father is a legendary coach in the Midwest, started an AAU program back when it was actually still called AAU. And we recruited a lot of their kids at Xavier. Katrina comes from just a wonderful family and a wonderful basketball background. She has worked her way up through the assistant coaching ranks and now has just become a very successful head coach there at Wright State. It's in Dayton, just outside of where Xavier was when we were in Cincinnati, and have just kept up with them. We've been in a couple of tournaments. We've never played them, but we've been in some tournaments. They will play up tempo. They really like to play fast. They're going to be very, very well coached. They won a very tough league and the tournament. So we know that we know what we're going to be facing. I don't know all the exact particulars. I caught them a couple times during the season, but we'll get to work tonight specifically on. But it'll be fun to see Tennille and Katrina, and I know their players will be they will not be intimidated at all by the league that we play in or our ranking. They will come ready to play in San Antonio.
All right, let me know if you've got more questions in the chat. Paul?
Okay, Mike, can you just talk about again what this night means to you and the group, Amber Shiree and all of those who have been through this?
Just a lot of thankfulness that people, like Amber, stuck around and stayed and was willing to help us get it back to this point. The players that were here, Jalen Mason, I think about right off the bat because she was in that first meeting we had right before we were picked 14th in the league that year. So to go from that to that in this period of time, and then to welcome in all the new people that we have and all the various ways that they've come to become Razorbacks, the excitement, for them to know that we're one of the best 33 teams, and very high up that list. To be a 4 seed, I think it's the highest in SEC. Since we've been in the SEC, if I looked right, we'll have to get Mario to do a little work on that. But I think prior to that, maybe a 6 seed was the highest that an Arkansas team's achieved in the SEC era. Amber will be quick to point out that back in the Southwest Conference days, they were a 3 seed, but that's different. That's not apples to apples. So it means that everybody that did believe in us, thank you, and all the people that told us we could never do it, or whatever you want to say, you were wrong. And that's part of it. I get it. Like I said, I wish I was a bigger person not to be able to say that, but in today's society with what these kids grow up with and what they have to deal with, I think it's a punctuation. It's not the end of the chapters, not the end of the story, but we got a couple of chapters still left to write, and it's exciting that this group can experience it with all those other kids that were here. Mal hit me today wanting to come be a practice player. And in a non-COVID year, we'd have certainly done it. But just an excitement for all the kids that were Razorbacks during any of this last span that helped us get it from not being, talked about for an NCAA tournament to being comfortably in and then being able to have a celebration like this. And now turn our focus to one and done. Practice had a little different tone today, and the kids could sense it. And they were talking about it. It is turning your uniforms in time. It wasn't like that any other time during the year, but it is now. We don't play for a week. We got some time to polish up what we need polished up and be ready to play. And just as much as anything, mentally get prepared for what, the bubble that we're hearing about in Indianapolis. We've got a lot of crossover with our men's staff, and we got players that are talking to each other. So we're going to get through it together. It's great that we have our men's team in the tournament. I don't know. I didn't keep count on the field, but I think there are maybe 12 to 15 teams that maybe have both teams in it. So that'll be a real resource for us to be able to talk to those guys who are a couple of days ahead of us in the protocols.
Well, and the other thing I was going to ask is the year, in this year with all you guys had to do and adhere to get here, how big is that?
Well, it hopefully it makes it worth it. I tell you this, we're all going to be holding our breath the next 3 days for testing. We saw what happened with Coach Ariema. We saw what happened in some of these conference tournaments. I will be from 8 in the morning until 9 o'clock every morning. I will be watching my phone and hoping for no call. I told Todd Schaefer, do not call me with anything other than COVID news. I do not want to look down and you call me. Just call me some earlier or later, but that's kind of that usual window. But it is, I hope, a small reward for everything that they've done, the sacrifices they have made, but we got to stick to it, get down there and get this thing played, get the actual experience. But tonight was a big step. We didn't get to have that last year. And just to see the raw emotion that some of these kids had in the stands and in the locker room when they got their gear bag. When you go to the NCAA tournament, you get some new gear. When you go to the NIT tournament, you don't. So that's the difference in those two things. So it's kind of exciting to see some emotions from everybody when it came to that type of things.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Jason?
Monday afternoon. So do you like playing second day, and does it benefit you to see how things go day one when you get there?
I think it does. Of the events, one year we were the very first game in it, and it almost just feels like it hasn't started yet. But being able to sit there in the hotel, which we'll be in, and watching the other games happen, I do think there's a benefit to playing on day two. An afternoon start's good for us. We played a bunch of those things. And I think the extra day helps. That Sunday to Monday is a luck of the draw, I know, but for us, I think it's huge.
Any more questions for Coach Neighbors?
You mentioned all the stuff you're going to have to do. It starts with an almost 2-day quarantine where you're having to self-isolate. We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
Just preparing for that. And then what happens after those 2 days? What are you able to do?
Well, I'm going to mandatorily make them watch Ted Lasso. I've talked to y'all about that enough. That's going to be kind of our show for the day. We'll have a couple episodes of that. I just think keeping them moving. We can do some things as a bubble. I just don't think sitting in a hotel room with 4 walls closing in on you for an extended period of time is healthy for anybody. There's a reason that's where we put people who do bad things. None of these kids have done bad things. So we want to keep them fresh. We'll have some card games going. We're taking some board games. We've got some things up our sleeves to keep trying as we stay there, hopefully a length of time. But I told them to pack for 24 days. You know, that's what you got to be thinking. If you go down there packed for less than that, that can seep into your brain. So pack like we're going to be there till the middle of April, or the first week in April. Get your minds wrapped around that. We'll keep talking about it. I think the worst thing to do is not talk about it. Information is key. And we will tap into every resource possible. I told y'all earlier, I talked to a couple of my buddies who spent significant time in jails. What does it feel like when you're in a jail for 23 hours a day? What did you do? What felt worse? So we'll apply some of those techniques just to make sure that when we do get out, we are fresh, we are rested, we are happy, and we're ready to play.
Mike, I apologize if this question's been asked.
Okay.
I was on the air, had to leave early to make
Understandable. No problem,
Okay.
Randy.
What have you been doing to keep the kids game sharp? It's one thing to practice, but what have you been able to accomplish, Mike, to keep them game ready?
The first thing we did was let them get their legs and their lungs back. You know, we didn't come back day one after the little break and just try to bury them conditioning wise. We kind of waded into it. First day we did a lot of conditioning, just a lot of shooting. Then we had a skill day, but then after that we turned everything competitive. I mean, we had red team on one end, white team on the other, stretching, different music going, different stretches going, red versus white. Get that competitive edge back. Everything had a time and score. Today they had to shoot against the coaches. Just anything to keep their competitive spirits into this has an element of winner loser. Because earlier this year, you know, we could lose a game. We could lose a game in March and it not really be a loss because we learned from it and it helped us. There's no such thing as that in the NCAA tournament. You lose for whatever reason, they're putting you on a plane as soon as they can and they're sending you back and you're turning your stuff in and you're planning your senior banquet. So putting some finality on that. This is not a do-over drill. You either win it or you lose it. We did that 2 days last week. We'll do that at least one more day before we leave for San Antonio. And we will really strip things away, things that we have done all year long. We won't do a lot of those things. We're going to do specific to Wright State and Wright State only. All of our practices will be leading right to those guys, and only our sole focus will be on round one matchup. And then we'll take what comes next if we're able to accomplish that task.
You've got a full week before you play. How do you keep the girls, even yourself, how do you keep from being over-prepared and overhyped so that once the game arrives, you end up being flat?
You manage their time. You just don't require. We'll take a day. There'll be a day off in between there. Now that we know the Monday off, we'll get them a schedule. We'll have another day that's just shooting. I'll get Jalen's in the back getting ready to talk to y'all. She's in charge of getting the card council together tomorrow. We'll have our weekly card game and discuss what we can do to still be COVID sensitive, but do exactly what you said. Not get over anticipated, but also not get dull and flat. But it'll be a combination of on the court and off the court things. And the on-court stuff will be very, very competitive, and the off-court stuff will be making sure that we go down there healthy and rested.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kyle.
You got it.
Nate?
Yeah, I apologize if you've been asked this because I had computer problems getting on, but I was curious, Mike, if you're familiar with Malik Adams at all as an assistant coach there.
Yeah, we mentioned that right off the top. Very familiar with Tennille. She was around when I was working camps. I talk to her every time I see her out on the road. We've crossed paths many a times recruiting. We've exchanged emails. She had texted Amber within minutes of the announcement. You know, she is a Razorback legacy leaver legend. And I have stayed connected to her when we see each other. But it'll be fun to see Tennille, and I'm also close with their head coach. So there's a lot of familiarity with them and their program and the success that they've had. They've got our utmost respect and our full attention.
Thanks.
I just hope she hadn't taught people how to take charges like her and Karen Jones used to, man. They were quite the duo in there around the basket.
Last call for questions for Coach Neighbors.
Just with Amber, like the momentum building up to her getting to San Antonio, and I know we've talked about that she can't see her family,
Yeah.
but just the momentum of that building up for her and knowing that it's almost here.
She had a lot of emotion, and you know, she's not one of those kids that show it a lot, but very special for her. You know, I looked all the way through the manual. I looked all the way through the NCAA manual, and it talked about, you know, what we could do and what we can't do. And I never saw one thing in there about the bus driver being able to take us on whatever route we tell him to take us to the gym and back from the gym. So we may make a drive by her house. We may make a drive by some of her family members. We may make a drive by her high school and some places that'll feel like home for her. But, you know, it's a cool thing, and she is very appreciative of it. You know, she'll talk to y'all throughout the week about what it means to her, I know. And it's, you know, it's not something everybody gets a chance to do, so it makes it kind of special. There's a bunch of kids in this thing from the San Antonio area. That is a hotbed of girls basketball talent. So there'll be a lot of kids coming back to that area that played high school there or summer league. Chelsea played down there too. She played on that San Antonio's finest team with those guys. So there's gonna be a lot of people that will help us if the GPS breaks down.
All right. Thanks, Nabes.
All right. Thank y'all.